Alright, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. Got one of my Ficus Microcarpa cuttings. I think it's looking pretty good. Getting a little growth spurt for the spring, so I think it's time for a prune and some wire on here. I'd actually think that it was just about ready maybe to come out of this little training pot and get into something better. It's only been in this training pot, I mean, my recollection is that it's been about a year and a half. Went through an emergency repot, I guess it's been about 4 months now as well. This was actually kind of beat around pretty well, and it took a long time to recover. And it's just now getting the foliage back on there and everything, so I don't think I want to repot it just right now. Maybe later, even on the summer. But for right now, I'm just going to see how it reacts after this. You can see, even though looks good and healthy right now, it is just kind of leggy. Some of these longer shoots don't really have much taper or anything. Just kind of getting some growth on there. After the hurricane, it actually it was one of the trees that all of the leaves were on it after the hurricane, but then a few days later they all turned yellow. They all fell off, and it was still really warm out then, and it just sat bare for a long time. And then once this finally started growing again, I haven't done any pruning. I just wanted to make sure it built up some health. And I think I've taken care of the, building up some health again. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a good prune today and get some wire on it. I might even just kind of leave the camera on some wire while I wire. I usually don't. But since it's a small tree, I'm only going to wire about 2 or 3 branches. Once I prune off everything that's not going to stay, I'll be left with basically there's like 4 main branches, the apex as well. Only one of the branches even has anything that's going to be worth getting like a secondary wire on. And then there's a lot of little shoots. I've made some mistakes. Shoots about this size here. See if you guys can see that really well. About that size. I've made the mistake of putting wire on little shoots like that. And I've actually had, sometimes it works out and sometimes I've actually had them break. Here's another good example here. This shoot is I'm going to keep it and like to get some wire on it and train it one day. So I want to get those pruned up and get some wire on, the main branches. First thing I'm going to do is go in. I'm going to get all the obvious looking shoots that need to come completely off. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start pruning back some of the foliage. I want to make sure I get every growing tip. Take the apex off, just create a little more taper in there. It's not that close to this big scar. If you go, I'm going to include the link to the old video on this one. I think I've only got one on it. This had another growth coming right out of here, and then it was, I don't even remember which direction it really was. I was keeping it as a branch, and then I was keeping this as an apex. And I decided to look kind of goofy because that was coming out of the tree higher than what I was keeping, keeping as the apex. And so I went ahead and cut that off. And now the scar is kind of in the middle of almost all the growth. It does have, basically 3 branches coming off of it at the same point. This one I'm going to use as the apex, and these 2 here I'm just going to use as branches as it kind of grows. I hope it stretches at some point and they kind of get to different levels. That's another reason, but I'd also like to, kind of keep it wired up and pruned as I go. You can see where I've had wire on this before. I've had wire here and then here. And I didn't, I think this was just a small shoot at the time, so I didn't have any wire on that one. But what I'm going to do is I'll probably go ahead and wire these two together, just the primary branch, and then I'm thinking that I can do these two together, and then maybe this one with the apex. I'll see it kind of looks as I work on it here. Alright, so I've been letting this tree regain its health for a while, so I don't really see any previous wire scars. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go right on top of this big chop mark. So what I'm going to do, I've used, that's 2.5 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and just get some 2 millimeter on this one. I don't think it needs to be quite as big. I do find that for most branches around this size, when it's still flexible on these Microcarpa, I'm using the 2.5 or 3 more than anything. Sometimes the smaller ones that can take like something small like the 2 is a little bit actually too small to really be wired at all. And of course, I mean, that's just my opinion. With the movement that I had in there, just tried to, get a little more movement of the same type. Definitely don't want to bend anything backwards from what it already was. This one had no wire on it to begin with, so I got a good move there. These two little ones, this one already had wire on it, so I'm just going to go ahead and just follow those bends, make them a little bit deeper. And this one, try to get a little up and down movement in that too. This apex, thinking maybe I'd like the illusion of that, or not really even illusion, but I'd like it to kind of come back over by that big chop mark and then have most of the growth on top of that. And hopefully that'll also kind of help just draw that scar on up to healing a little bit better too. I did notice that this one actually has a break in it, so when I do try to just mimic the same movement, I'm going to be really careful I don't get too much more movement right on that, because then that would be almost at a right angle if I had got too much more on that. And then this back one, wish I could get a third bend out of it maybe. But I think for now that'll do. And I'll be updating you soon.